Good afternoon. I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Ralph.
Good afternoon, Alma. Hello, I'm Ralph Rondo Empire bringing you the news in the ASEAN dynamic region.
On today's headlines. Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Sara Ariola told an online news briefing that more than 100 Filipino nationals have so far been taken out of harm's way amid the ongoing Ukraine-Russia war.
Meron po tayong tinataya na
Left Thailand early Thursday. The body of Shane Warren left Thailand early Thursday, flying back to Australia, where the cricket superstar will receive a state funeral.
The Philippine Air Force announced that the 5th Fighter Wing has successfully concluded its air combat dubbed Sanay Siba 2022, which ran from February 22 to March 5.
Indonesia's Mount Merapi volcano erupted, spewing hot clouds overnight on Thursday.
Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Sara Ariola told an online news briefing that more than 100 Filipino nationals have so far been taken out of harm's way amid the ongoing Ukraine-Russia war. However, she said there are some Filipinos who refuse to come home from Ukraine after the Philippines imposed mandatory evacuation amid Russia's devastating invasion. Take a look.
Wife or the mother. Especially you said, masaya tayo na 199 Filipinos are out of harm's way. 63 na po yung nakabalik sa Pilipinas and 136 are awaiting repatriation. Meron po tayong tinataya na sa land base po, a little over 100 na ayaw pa na talagang umuwi, but we are pleading with them, we've been calling them and we're asking them na umuwi na sila, no? Pero Yusek, medyo problemado tayo dito sa sea base. POEA is closely monitoring how many Filipinos are stranded po sa kanilang mga vessels. Pero yesterday dumating po talaga yung 21 seafarers po mula sa MVS Breeze, kasama rin pa yung MV Joseph Schultz. And we're expecting more to arrive today and the following days. But actually, iba-iba. As of last week, ang pinaka-concentration sa Lviv at sa Kiev. Pero karamihan po nito yung may mga asawa po na Ukrainian. Alam po natin yung mga kalalakihan, hindi po talaga kasi. So it's always a very difficult decision for the wife or the mother to choose to leave the husband and bring the child with them. Iba naman po mga household service workers na nananatili sa kanilang mga employers dahil they stay where the employer goes. Yung iba po alam natin kung nasaan sila dahil nandun sila sa mga barko nila. Na hindi rin po sila makaalis dahil po very pag-heavy po shelling tsaka heavy po yung fighting. And pag ganun po yung pagkakataon, you have been advised by our security sector na you have to hunker down and take cover at hintayin po na tumigil yung putukan kasi huwag sila mag-aalisan doon sa mga barko nila, baka lalo po sila mapahamak.
Ariola said most of the land-based Filipinos in Ukraine are in Lviv and Kiev, while the seafarers are in the Black Sea on board their merchant ships. On Tuesday, the 21 Filipino crew members of MVS Breeze safely arrived in the Philippines after their rescue from Odessa, Ukraine to Moldova early this month. Also included among the 63 repatriates are seafarers from the MV Joseph Schultz. The exodus of millions of Ukrainians from their country following the Russian invasion could overwhelm neighboring countries. That is according to UN humanitarians warning this on Wednesday. To date, more than 2 million people have fled Ukraine, and most have found shelter in Poland, and more than 200,000 have already reached Hungary. Take a look.
The International Organization for Migration this morning reports more than 2 million people have fled Ukraine to neighboring states as a result of the ongoing war in that country. Among them are 103,000 third country nationals from dozens of countries. Obviously, the situation is very fluid and the numbers are changing on an hourly basis. These figures are collated to 0930 this morning, CET.
We've reached 2 million Ukrainian refugees in 12 days, and most of the countries that they're going to are Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, the Republic of Moldova, Romania, other European countries as well, and the Russian Federation and Belarus.
Turning my attention to Mariupol in particular, we have a situation here where hundreds of thousands of people are trapped in this city in dire conditions, fast running out of food, clean water, needed medical supplies. The situation is atrocious. We stand ready to act in terms of our neutral intermediary role to facilitate the safe passage of civilians out of the city. But the bottom line today is that this situation is really apocalyptic for people. It is getting worse. They are running out of essential supplies. And so our call today is really for life-saving aid to reach these people.
Slovakia has taken in more than 150,000 from its embattled neighbors since February 24, when Russian forces began shelling and bombarding Ukrainian cities. Latest estimates from UN aid agencies suggest that 4 million refugees are likely by the end of the war, which represents about 10% of Ukraine's population. And this development follows news alerts that a Russian strike at a hospital in Mariupol has left children buried under the rubble. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that the Russian airstrike on a children's hospital in the southeastern city of Mariupol is proof that the genocide of Ukrainians is taking place. Take a look.
Авіабомба на пологовий будинок – це остаточний доказ. Доказ того, що відбувається геноцид українців. Європейці, ви не зможете сказати, що не бачили, що відбувалося з українцями, що відбувалося у Маріуполі з маріупольцями. Ви бачили, ви знаєте.
A local official said the strike on the recently refurbished maternity hospital, which included a pediatric unit, wounded at least 17 staff, though no deaths were reported. On the Russian side, the foreign ministry, while it did not deny the attack, accused Ukrainian nationalist battalions of using the hospital to set up firing positions after moving out staff and patients. The attack came as women were in labor inside, according to the regional military administration in Donetsk. And according to the World Health Organization, or WHO, there have been 18 confirmed attacks on Ukraine health facilities. Take a look.
So far, WHO has verified 18 attacks on health facilities, health workers, and ambulances, including 10 deaths and 16 injuries. These attacks deprive whole communities of health care. WHO continues to call on the Russian Federation to commit to a peaceful resolution to this crisis and to allow safe, unimpeded access to humanitarian assistance for those in need.
On Wednesday, President Zelensky also tweeted what appeared to be a footage of a birthing center. As you can see here, its walls painted in cheerful shades of green and yellow, now reduced to shattered windows, splintered doors, and hastily abandoned machinery. The number of civilians killed in the attack on the hospital was not known. A UN spokesman said no health facility should ever be a target.
Amid the rising prices of basic goods and services, the Regional Wage Board started reviewing pending wage petitions in each region, according to the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE. In a virtual press briefing last Wednesday, Labor Secretary Sylvester H. Bella III disclosed that he ordered all of the regional tripartite wages and productivity boards, or RTW-PBS, to start assessing the economic indicators and consultation of major stakeholders in their jurisdictions. Let's take a look.
So, inactivate ko agad yung ating wage board, no? Kasi sila naman ang mandated to continue monitoring our wage level, and then based on their assessment of the economic factors and in consultation with the major stakeholders who are also members of the wage board, by the way, Harold. Diyan sa wage board na yan, represented ang mga employees. In the same way that the employers are also properly represented. Kaya itong grupo na ito, this tripartite council na ito, ang siyang nag-aaral together with our economic advisors ng NEDA at ang DTI. Sila ang tuloy-tuloy na nag-o-obserba o nag-a-assess sa socio-economic factors in all the regions, especially here within Metro Manila. And on the basis of that, meron tinatawag na anniversary initiative. Halimbawa, dapat every year merong review ang ating wage board, and based on the review, they can recommend wage adjustment. Pero ngayon, even before na darating yung period na yon, kailangan ma-activate na yung ating wage board dahil meron ng pending petition for wage increases. In fact nga, merong isang petition not only addressed to us but also addressed to Congress, petitioning that the minimum wage should be increased to 750 pesos per day. Yun ang isang petition. And there are other petitions. Isang petition is requesting that yung salary level should all be the same from Region 1 to Region 13. Dapat pare-pareho. Hindi kagaya ngayon na Region NCR 537, Region 3 400, Region 4 470, ganun. In my region 340, ganun. So ang gusto nila, pare-pareho na lang. Yun ang kanilang petition. That is why in my meeting with some of members of the wage board, sinabi ko, it's probably time for you to work on this petition and see how we can address the concern of this petition, taking into account the position of our stakeholders, meaning the employers and the employees.
Bello acknowledged that the existing minimum wage rates nationwide are no longer enough for the needs of many workers. As of February, data from the National Wages and Productivity Commission showed the real wage adjusted for inflation in the National Capital Region, or NCR, is now only at 494 pesos. Meanwhile, real minimum wages in other regions range from 266 pesos to 370 pesos. Bello said the RTW-PBS are expected to start their wage rate reviews during the last week of March and will complete such by next month. At least 35,000 civilians were evacuated from besieged Ukrainian cities on Wednesday, President Volodymyr Zelensky says. Let's take a look.
Вивчую. Сьогодні нам вдалося організувати роботу 3 гуманітарних коридорів з міста Суми, з міст і містечок Київської області та з Енергодару. Загалом було врятовано близько 35 тисяч людей.
The evacuations came after Moscow and Kyiv agreed on Wednesday to open more corridors, offering a glimmer of hope for terrified civilians trapped in bombarded cities. More than 5,000 people were evacuated a day earlier from Sumy, a city of 250,000 that lies close to the Russian border and has been the scene of heavy fighting. But attempted evacuations from the port town of Mariupol, which has been besieged by Russia for days, have failed on several occasions, with both Kyiv and Moscow blaming each other. An economist, law maker on Wednesday warned that continued oil price hikes will likely have resulted in some 1.3 million more people falling into poverty, driving inflation to as high 5.4% while undermining the country's economic growth target for this year. House Committee on Ways and Means Chairman Joey Sardis Salceda said these 1.3 million Filipinos are equivalent to an additional 1.2% of the population in poverty. The $127 current crude prices as of March 9, Salceda said, may translate to an increase of around 11.1 peso on gasoline, 9.25 cents on diesel, and 8.88 pesos on kerosene next week. According to Salceda, oil-producing countries will continue to maximize the opportunity to claw back losses from when oil futures sank to record lows during the pandemic. On GDP growth, Salceda said these high oil prices could undermine the efforts to reach 7 to 9% GDP growth in 2022 by around 0.3 to 0.5%. Salceda said these high prices could also drive overall inflation to as high as 5.2 to 5.4% by June, considering added pressures on bread, typical power demand surges during the summer months, and second-round effects of oil prices on transport costs, electricity, food, especially fish, and other basic commodities. Russia and Ukraine are among the world's largest producers of meat. Vietnam has sent the second flight to Poland to repatriate Vietnamese citizens from Ukraine. A Boeing 7879 Dreamliner of Bamboo Airways left Hanoi on early Wednesday. It is expected to land in Warsaw on the same day and bring nearly 300 Vietnamese citizens back to Hanoi on March 10. Earlier, the airline submitted a rescue plan to the Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam, or CAAV, with its 7 flights from Hanoi to Prague, Bucharest, Romania, Warsaw in Poland, Budapest, Hungary, Bratislava in Slovakia, and Moscow in Russia, Minsk, in a bid to evacuate Vietnamese nationals from Ukraine. The first evacuation flight conducted by the national flag carrier Vietnam Airlines landed in Hanoi on March 8 with 283 Vietnamese citizens on board. The CAAV said that Vietnam Airlines was permitted to conduct the third rescue flight, which is scheduled to leave Hanoi on March 10 for Bucharest to evacuate 283 passengers.
Meanwhile, Petrogas is implementing price rollbacks on pump prices until March 13. Price rollback in Petrogas stations nationwide started at 6 a.m. today, and it will end at until 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. Petrogas is giving a rollback of 5 pesos and 85 centavos per liter for diesel, 3.6 per liter, 3 pesos or 60 centavos per liter on gasoline products, and these were the same amount that oil firms implemented during the fuel price hikes last Tuesday. The oil firm said this is to minimize the impact of rising fuel prices to motorists, since we are expecting another round of oil price hike next week. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Mr. Bawal, may ibis ka, oh. Asan? It's a prank! Okay lang manakot. Pero kung mananakot ka para sa boto, bawal yan!
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, threats, intimidation, terrorism, use of fraudulent device or other forms of coercion is an election offense.
Sino kausap mo? Makaalis na nga, sa iba na lang ako mananakot. Mr. Pwede! Mr. Pwede! May malaking ibis sa likod mo! Nox! Babawi ka pa, ha? Di mo ako maiisahan! Ako si Mr. Bawal na nagpapaalala sa inyo na ang pananakot para sa boto. Ibis! Uy! Bawal yan!
service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Karapatan natin lahat na iboto ang karapat-dapat! Tama! Lahat ng Pilipino pwedeng bumoto!
Kung rehistrado ka.
Ha?
Ang lahat ng Pilipinong rehistrado lamang ang maaaring bumoto. 1 taon ang ibinibigay ng Commission on Elections para magparehistro ang mga Pilipinong boboto sa darating na eleksyon. Kailangan gawin ito para maiwasan ang tinatawag na flying voters. Teka, lahat ba kayo nagparehistro na?
Opo! Rehistrado na kami lahat!
Bakit tahimik ka? Hindi ka nakapagrehistro, no?
Nakakalimutan ko.
Ay, hindi ka pwedeng bumoto. Mabuti pa, bumili ka na lang ng balot.
Pagka kami pa bumili ng balot, pwede na kami bumoto.
Hindi, pero mabubusog ka. Para sa karagdagang kaalaman, makipag-ugnayan lang sa pinakamalapit na barangay o bisitahin ang COMELEC website.
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back. Bangladesh police arrested a powerful Muslim cleric who allegedly issued an execution edict against a prominent Rohingya activist shot dead last year in the vast refugee camps near the Myanmar border, that according to officials on Sunday. The murder last September of Mohib Ullah, the head of an important civil society group, the one you see here on the screen, sent shockwaves through the massive settlements that house hundreds of thousands of Rohingya who fled a violent crackdown by Myanmar's army in 2017. His family blamed the murder on the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, or ARSA, which is the main Rohingya insurgent group in western Myanmar and believed to be involved in drug smuggling and violent crimes in the camps. On Saturday, an elite Bangladeshi police unit arrested Molvi Zakaria, the alleged chief of the Ulema Council, a council of powerful clerics tied to ARSA. Molvi Zakaria issued a fatwa, or a religious edict, to assassinate Mohib Ullah. Then Mohib Ullah was killed. Zakaria went into hiding, according to police official Naimul Hake. Hake said Zakaria had disagreements with Mohib Ullah. Mohib Ullah was working for the repatriation of Rohingya people to Myanmar, but the work of the so-called ARSA was to destroy the discipline in the camps, he said. The overwhelming majority of the Rohingya people are conservative Muslims. Sources said ARSA has a firm grip on the religious affairs of the Rohingya people through the Ulema Council. In October last year, ARSA was also accused of killing 6 people in an Islamic seminary in a refugee camp in Bangladesh's southeast, which was allegedly controlled by its rival, Islami Mahad. And the body of Shane Warne left Thailand early Thursday, flying back to Australia, where the cricket superstar will receive a state funeral. Wrapped in an Australian flag, the coffin of the 52-year-old who died on Thailand's Koh Samui Island Friday left Don Muang International Airport at 8:24 a.m. local time on a private plane, according to a Thai airport official confirming this. Autopsy results confirmed that the leg spin bowler, one of the greatest test cricketers of all time, died of natural causes after a suspected heart attack. Warren, as you see here on the screen, didn't just inspire a cricketing generation, he defined it, said a statement by the Victoria government announcing the state funeral would be held on March 30 at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Warren was discovered late Friday at a luxury villa on Koh Samui, where he was on holiday after failing to meet friends that evening. He was taken to the Thai International Hospital, Samui, but despite medical efforts, he could not be revived. On Monday, police said an autopsy had found the death was due to natural causes. The Philippine Air Force today announced that the 5th Fighter Wing has successfully concluded its air combat exercise dubbed Sanay Sibat 2022-1, which ran from February 22 to March 5. PAF spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Maynard Mariano said Sanay Sibat gives 5th Fighter Wing units and operators the opportunity to evaluate doctrine, tactics, and desired tactical readiness in terms of capabilities. He also said that this was a 2-week exercise of intensive air-to-air and air-to-ground activities, emphasizing on mission sets for which the SFW or the 5FW is expected to perform and provide both for the air defense requirement and in other employment considerations. Mariano said that Sanay Sibat 2022-1 was a step above the previous exercises of its kind since 2018 and derived lessons learned in operating with other security partners and allies. He also said that, quote, this year's Sanay Sibat concentrated on defensive and offensive counter-air techniques, executing best tactics and dynamic coordination between capability packages and integrating these capabilities to obtain desired effects in a simulated battle space and battlefield. Another critical component of this exercise is the skills of the air weapons controllers, the eyes and ears of air defense from the 580th Aircraft Controller and Warning Wing. He added the highly extensive exercise aims to build confidence and integrate leadership and warfighter culture that's able to operate both in the air and on the surface.
A vast array of solar panels floats on the shimmering waters of a reservoir in northeast Thailand, symbolizing the kingdom's drive towards clean energy as it seeks carbon neutrality by 2050. The immense installation, covering 720,000 square meters of water surface, is a hybrid system that converts sunlight to electricity by day and generates hydropower at night. Touted by the authorities as the world's largest floating hydrosolar farm, the Sirindorn Dam project in the northeastern province of Ubon Ratchathani is the first of 15 such farms Thailand plans to build by 2037. The kingdom is stepping up efforts to wean itself off fossil fuels, and at the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow last year, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha set the target of carbon neutrality by 2050, followed by a net zero greenhouse emissions by 2065. The Sirindorn Dam Farm, which began operations last October, has more than 144,000 solar cells, covering the same area as 70 football pitches, and can generate 45 MW of electricity. The Philippines joined other countries in adopting the historic resolution to end plastic pollution at the resumed session of the 5th United Nations Environment Assembly in Nairobi from February 28 to March 2. The resolution starts the process to craft an international legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution, addressing the full life cycle of plastic products from production, design to disposal. The resolution targets 2024 as the date of completion of the new agreement. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DNR, officer in charge, James Sampolna, delivered the Philippine statements via pre-recorded message. Held back-to-back with ONEA 5.2 was the UNEP at 50 special session marking 50 years of the work on the UN Environment Program. The two events saw the attendance of 3,000 in person and 1,500 online participants from 175 UN member states, including Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, other African heads of state, environment ministers, and other high-level officials. Indonesia's Mount Merapi volcano erupted, spewing hot clouds overnight Thursday. The National Disaster Mitigation Agency spokesperson Abdul Mohari said the volcano on the densely populated island of Java unleashed clouds of hot ash at least 7 times just before and after midnight, and fast-moving pyroclastic flows, a mixture of rock, lava, and gas, traveled up to 5 kilometers down its slopes. The eruption forced about 250 residents to flee to temporary shelters and left ash blanketing nearby villages and towns. Indonesia's Geology and Volcanology Research Agency warned residents living on Merapi's fertile slopes to stay 7 kilometers away from the crater's mouth and should be aware of the danger posed by lava. Mount Merapi is the most active volcano in Indonesia and has repeatedly erupted with lava and gas clouds recently. Indonesia, an archipelago of more than 17,000 islands and islets, has nearly 130 active volcanoes. It sits on the Ring of Fire, a belt of tectonic plate boundaries circling the Pacific Ocean, where frequent seismic activity occurs. Rights groups on Wednesday mounted a fresh 11-hour clemency appeal for a Malaysian man facing execution in Singapore for drug offenses, saying he suffers from mental and psychological disabilities. Let's take a look.
The problem, and we are here as well because we have over 400 of our supporters who have written to the President of Singapore asking for Nagendra's life to be spared. Amount of outrage that there's been, that has come up since this case was made public, since the execution was imminent, is overwhelming. I think most of the people in the world do not want to see a mentally a person of questionable mental capacity executed. But in this particular case, we feel it's especially egregious and especially concerning that the Singapore government will still wants to push ahead with this execution.
Nagendran Dharmalingam, now 34, was arrested in 2009 for trafficking a small amount of heroin into Singapore, which is some of the world's toughest drug laws, and handed a then mandatory death sentence the following year. He was scheduled to be hanged in November, but the verdict sparked criticism due to concerns he has intellectual disabilities, with the European Union and British billionaire Richard Branson among those condemning this decision. The appeal was made in separate letters sent by Amnesty International and the Anti-Death Penalty Asia Network, or ADPAN, to Singapore President Halima Yacob through the city-state's embassy in Malaysia. Nagendran's lawyer Violet Neto had urged Singapore's Court of Appeal last week to show mercy by allowing the prisoner to undergo an independent assessment by a psychiatrist. The court has yet to issue a ruling on the appeal. Amnesty's letter said Nagendran has been found to have borderline intellectual functioning and cognitive deficits. Adpan said he is also suffering from a psychological disability and asked Singapore's president to grant clemency or intervene to commute his death sentence.
And we'll be back with more right after this short break. Stay tuned.
Ito ang Net25 Primetime News. Matatag. Matapang. Matapat kasama sina Alex Santos, Emma Tiglao, at Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 ng gabi sa Net 25.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Bida sa pelikula, sa commercials, sa game shows, sa puso mo.
Welcome sa ating bagong show! Kung saan hindi ako pero kayo ang bida.
Mga kwentong may puso at tumatago sa puso.
Gusto ko lang po talagang ma-share sa kanila na they are not alone.
Gumawa ka ng kabutihan kahit mawala na yung kita mo lahat. Bida!
Tinuruan namin yung mga magulang kung paano gumawa ng mga localized solar.
Pati ang mga home daddies, kasama sa kwentuhan. Kaya maging bidarkada na kasama ng ating feel-good host, Aga Mulak.
Let's be the light of kindness in this world. Ito po ang Bida Kayo kay Aga.
Abangan ang mga istorya ng pagbangon sa Season 2 ng Lingap Stories tuwing linggo, alas 5 ng hapon sa Net 25.
Ani, ano ba? Yung anak natin, patahimikin mo na, patahanin mo.
Ayoko. Weird ng anak natin na yan.
Hi, ako po yung nag-a-apply.
Marunong ka ba magluto?
Sana nga, maluto mo yung mga paborito namin pagkain.
Alam na namin ang sikreto yung dalawa.
Oo nga! Bakit hawak mo yan?
Couples necklace na yan.
Binigay sa amin ni Esmigong yan. Esmigong?
Welcome back to the program. Starting Monday, the Department of Foreign Affairs will start accepting walk-in applications for passport of overseas Filipino workers, senior citizens, minors, pregnant women, solo parents, and people with disability. Meanwhile, DFA Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. has resigned the allocation of passport slots given to recruitment agencies following the mounting complaints the department is receiving on their online application availability. An advisory posted on its website, the DFA Office of Consular Affairs said the DFA ASEAN along the Diosdado Macapagal Avenue in Pasay City will accommodate qualified and fully vaccinated walk-in applicants under courtesy lane starting March 14 from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. only. This is the first time that the DFA has opened its main consular building in ASEAN for walk-in applicants since May 2020, 2 months after the pandemic began. The DFA has been strictly requiring all passport applicants to book their appointments online. As for the other applicants wanting to apply at the consular offices and temporary office passport service of the DFA, they need to apply for appointment. Minor passport applicants who are allowed under courtesy lane are those aged 7 years old and below. Those minors who are not yet vaccinated will follow the vaccination status of their accompanying parent or guardians. The DFA may also allow other passport applicants who need to travel for exceptional or emergency reasons, but their cases need to be approved by DFA Secretary Locsin, DFA Undersecretary Dodo Dulay, or DFA Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs, Senen Mangalile. In a tweet, Locsin said recruiters will no longer be given passport slots. They will have to go online like everyone else. This won't affect OFWs. The Directorate General of Immigration of Indonesia has announced the commencement of visa on arrival for tourism for 23 countries, including Vietnam, which came into effect on March 7. Foreign nationals can apply for VOA for tourism after arriving only through immigration control at Balis International Airport and Seaport. However, foreigners holding visa on arrival for tourism can leave Indonesia through any immigration control, not necessarily in Bali. Foreigners must present all requirements for a VOA for tourism at the immigration counter, such as a passport valid for at least 6 months, a return ticket or a connecting ticket to continue traveling to another country, and other documents required under the provisions from the COVID-19 task force.
Thank you, Ralph, for keeping me company here on ASEAN in Focus. Really, I am really happy to see you back.
Always a pleasure, Alma, working with you. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. This is Ralph Wandel M5 from your EBC Vietnam Bureau. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Ralph. And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. Stay in the news because we live in interesting times.